Hey everyone, it's Carla. Welcome back to my channel. Well, that was quite an adventure. I had 10 solid minutes of this tutorial filmed for you guys and realized that on the brand new camera that I have, first of all, the autofocus would not stop jumping and it was just too distracting. So I'm now filming on my phone again. And the second thing was, after that full 10 minutes, I realized that the mic was off. So you couldn't hear a thing I was saying. Anyway, so here we are back. Unfortunately, I did not get to film some of what you're seeing here. So let me recap very quickly. This is a tutorial for an Anna Griffin inspired or Anna Griffin style card. Only our twist is that we're doing vintage / Victorian. That's what my studio specializes in, and that's what we're doing. You can do these without a kit, and I'm just using plain old scrapbook paper that I have had for probably 20 years. I think it was a color Buch, which is German. It's got the umlauts over the O. It was a paper pad that I still have plenty of, but mostly it was just roses and beautiful ephemera, keys, romantic elements, damask, ornate corners, just any kind of thing will work. That screams Victorian. So we've already cut this out. I put it on some of the cards that I got in my Dollar General haul. Here they are. And I will link that right up here in the corner for you so you can watch that video. But I got quite a nice stuff, quite a bit of nice stuff from it. So that's that video, and this is one of the cards from it. I liked it because it was neutral and it seemed to kind of match the vibe of what we're going to do on this card. So I've already taken my Ranger Tim Holtz Faded Jeans Distressed Ink and gone around the edges. Anytime that we are doing vintage or Victorian, you have to keep in mind the physics of what happened to that paper. And I'm a physics nerd, so I always take it back to the physics. But there were two things occurring. First of all, we have oils in our hands. And it's naturally occurring oils. You can't get rid of it, or you could, but it comes back. So that's one thing that colors the paper, because where do we grab it the most? At the edges. When we're holding it, it fits right into our palm. So that's the reason that when you look at a very real, authentic piece of vintage stationery, it's going to be discolored. The other reason is the inks that they used were not acid-free. So that acid eventually turns everything discolored. If you've ever lived in a house that had natural gas, after about 7 years, you're going to notice everything's pretty much yellow. I don't know if that's due to a film, an actual physical film on the matter, but it discolors. So everything discolors with age. So that's why when we're doing vintage, we don't neglect the details. We actually distress and age the edges. Now, Anna Griffin does her cards in a particular way, and I've studied this for a while and think I finally have it figured out, but my problem was in trying to translate it to a Victorian style. First of all, she lays down a base, which is what we've done here. I cut this scrapbook paper to be exactly the size of this card base, and it's a regular standard A2 base. But then she will have other layers of things on top. Now, one of the things that she sometimes does is she will take a ribbon or another strip of decorated paper or paper that you can stamp. These are little edge pieces that I have had for probably as long as the color book. K and Company was the brand. I don't know if you can see that behind there. But these are pretty old, but they're just all edge pieces. And I hoard all of my papers because I know eventually I'm going to need them. So that's what these are. And I tried doing that, and it just didn't fit the vibe of the card. Because while we're doing reproduction, we still want it to be a little authentic. So what I did was I took some ribbon on this next layer. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. This one I cut down to where it would be a 1/2 inch smaller on every side. Anna seems to leave a little more room on the edges for the borders than I like particularly, but this is one of her cards that we're doing in her style, so we're going to do the bigger borders. You can do what you want. It's completely up to you. All right, so after I cut that out, I went ahead and also inked those edges. And that not only adds the aging, but it makes it stand out from your base, which you want. Now, I'm thinking that I'm probably going to put some dimensional tape squares behind it, but I'm not entirely sure. Probably, maybe not. So the next thing we did was added this organza ribbon. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, this ivory sheer organza ribbon. And then I wanted some borders because she does that in a lot of her cards. She will put a strip and then border it with something. Or she will build the border into the design on the strip. So I took a roll of ribbon. I have it for you right here so you can see it. I got this spool of ribbon from Hobby Lobby years ago. And it is just cotton lace. It's been micro crocheted, but you can see that there. So that's what we put on both sides of it. So that also lends some dimension to what we're doing. The next thing I did was I pulled all of my flower pieces that I thought might look good with the colors. And I auditioned those elements, and these are also pieces of, you know, the filming that didn't get picked up. So I'm pretty sad about that. But I found this beautiful swag in one of my collections, and so I cut it down. I'm probably going to cut this down even more. It just bothers me that it hangs over that much. Doesn't have to be symmetrical. I may even just, I liked the pink ribbons there, but I may just go ahead and cut those out just to even it up on both sides. But it's okay if the top layer hangs over, but just make sure that it's not hanging over your entire base card, because that's the part that needs to go in the envelope. We can build a little more padding in the top of it to accommodate the dimensions that we're going to add here. But, excuse me, on all the edges, it's just easier if you keep them straight, confined to the base card. So I took my hot glue and went over that. There's no way that I was going to be able to glue that down with the dimension happening here in the lace. Regular tacky glue, it just wouldn't have worked. So I went ahead also and inked up the edges of the, I don't know what you call these, die cuts, ephemera, maybe ephemera. They're on cardstock, pretty heavy cardstock. So I just went ahead and inked up the edges a little bit because I don't like that stark white showing, and it toned it down, which was nice. So I just found two groups of flowers that I really liked in that blue color, and then another one, oh, what are those, forget-me-nots, maybe? Put those on top, and that way, for my focal element, which is going to be dimensional, they just pop right from behind. They just peek out just a little bit. So that's the way this is all going to go together. Now, like I said, this is going to be dimensional. This one, if you can go to Amazon, drop $16.99 on a Bira Bira, I think is how you pronounce it, Bira Bira paper cutter. It's 2 inches, right there, 2 inches, and it's scalloped. I loved the scallop design. I could have gotten a regular one, but we're doing Victorian, you know, we're frou-frou. Victorians loved to gild or add gold to everything, and they loved to decorate. They used a lot of the times mauve, which was so expensive it was reserved only for royalty or for people who had lots of money. Anyway, back to the paper cutter. That's why we choose a little more ornate when we're choosing our tools. So this one is very cool. I'll go ahead and cut out another one for you so you can see it. Put it in the mouth right there and push. And it's got a nice little well here where it collects everything that you cut. And boom, there it is. How cool is that? So I think it was $16.99. Coolest thing I've ever bought, because I do vintage and Victorian all the time. And it's not going to go to waste. So this then is going to go on top with probably a sentiment that says Mother's Day, or I will put some flowers behind it. I don't know. We'll get to that part eventually. But this is where we are so far. I have not tacked down the card because I'm still not sure if I want to do dimension on that. But I do think I am going to go right now and trim off those. And you don't need to see me do that because you know how to cut. So, be back. Okay. So, what I want to do now is just work on this focal element. Now, I learned a really cool trick just from studying the different kinds of authentic cards. I would Google them and just do some research on them. And I don't know if you can tell because I've got white underneath. So let me pull over the envelope for that so you can see it better. Yeah. All right. I'm just taking my Prismacolor metallic gold. Prismacolor pencils are the ones that I use for my professional color pencil work. And I will link a video to that in the description box up there for you. How cool. All right, so I'm taking this super sharp because that's how you use color pencils. And I am going to draw just a little outline on the scallop. On all of them, all the way around. Now, I remember seeing cards from my grandmother when I was a little girl that had this very same element on them. I remember the scallop shape, which I guess is why I was drawn to it. They used that in a lot of different cards. And then I remember the gold. And because I didn't have a gold pen, I decided to whip out my gold pencil, which I have plenty of, and thought I would try it on this, and it looked fantastic. Now, I'm not going to do the whole thing because you know how to draw. You know how to do what I'm doing now that you've seen me do it. But here's a card that I finished already that I've done the very same thing to right here. And then I inked it up to make it look very, very old. But this is one of the cards that I did last night. You can see underneath here, this is a piece of crocheted lace ribbon, cotton, that is interwoven with pearls. So I just thought that was very, very beautiful and in keeping with the Victorian theme. This is one piece of scrapbook paper I used underneath. I took my walnut distress ink and stained the edges. Then I took a white piece of cardstock here and offset the coordinating scrapbook paper even more to give it that little border, which Anna is famous for in her cards. Then I took, well, I inked up the corners and did some embossing there with some beautiful floral ornate corner stamps that I have. Then I took a piece of one of those K and Company edgers and just laid it down horizontally. Next, I added the frame. You can barely see it there, but this is a chipboard frame. It's got some dimension. I don't know, probably a millimeter. And I just started adding little tiny stickers, flowers, peeking out from my focal element. And I hot glued down that. So that's basically what we're doing now with this card. This is the first one I finished. I think it turned out stunning. I am so happy with it. And then I just need to complete the inside. Now, I did print out some of these inserts. Let me show you what I've got. Okay, first one says, "To the World's Best Mother." And I'm going to put that inside right there. And I cut them, I printed them, designed them actually, so that they would be offset by that much when I cut them out. I will probably take some ink and just do some more corners here, maybe some scrolls very lightly in the background. No embossing powder, just straight ink. And that's all I'm going to do to the inside of that, because Anna keeps her cards very clean and neat, aside from the cover. So that's what we're doing. Here's another one that I printed that said Happy Mother's Day. I liked it that I used a light gray in the background of this so that it's offset even more from the white. But that's what we've got. That's what we're doing. So that's what I'm doing here. This is the effect I'm going for. And this is just, these sets of roses right here are just stickers. This was one of Anna's old stamps that I bought probably at the same time I bought one of her early card kits years and years and years ago, 20 years ago. This came from that, I think it was that kit, or else I got them at Hobby Lobby when they still carried them. But it just says Mother's Day, and I cut that out and inked up the edges. It doesn't take a whole lot to make something look vintage. It just does take, I can't even talk. It does take an eye to detail. So that's what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and then I will be back. Okay, I got that done, and you can see how beautiful it looks. All right, next I'm going to take my Distress ink. Tea dye is my favorite one to give this a little aging, and my dauber. And I'm just going to work on the edges of this a little bit before I add the blue, because I want more of that over the flower, and the I don't want the white to be so stark. We're doing vintage. We have to remember that we're not going to have pure white papers. And I just rub it over that area a little bit. And it's okay to get it uneven. You can get it heavier in some places and lighter in others, because nothing ages uniformly. There we go. I like that better. Yes, much better. Got it. Okay. So this says Mother's Day. That's an old one that came out pretty gnarly looking, and I didn't like it. So I want to redo it again. Oh, by the way, and I will link this in the description, or up above, so that you can see it. This is my envelope holder. This is all done with envelopes, but it's also an accordion so that you can actually see what you're doing. So I am going for my Anna Griffin stamps. Yes, and I keep them all in here. I keep my stencils in that one. And then I've got things like rice paper and napkins in that one. So I've got a link for that, and I think I also mentioned the person who did the original tutorial for it, but you can use those things for anything. They're just plain old manila envelopes from the store. So what I'm going to do now is get my acrylic block here and my Mother's Day sentiment. Okay. I think for this, it might be pretty if we did it in the blue. Normally I would go with something neutral, but I don't know, just feeling sparky today. So let's see if that does. Okay. Yes, that will work. And I like the color. So let's cut it out. And I've lost my scissors. There we go. Do your craft tables just overrun you eventually? I started out so well. I'm not even going to be really careful with fussy cutting this. because what I'm going to do is just chop it here. But I am going to round that corner. And that way they fit on the focal element here. I'll probably do something like that and that. Yeah. But before I do that, I am going to what? That's right. I'm going to ink up my edges. I wanted to show you this little trick that I learned quite by accident when I was doing, see, for part of my brand, I use sealing wax, and I use an emblem, so I melt the wax, but it was sticking to everything. Sometimes I like to make the seals before I put them on the envelope, and it was just sticking to everything. I couldn't use aluminum foil, I couldn't use paper, I couldn't use plastic, and then I found this idea. This is just a pre-cut sheet of parchment paper that you buy from Kroger for your kitchen. You line your baking sheets with it. Well, one day, quite by accident, I was trying to use it as an insert for a card because I thought, oh my gosh, parchment, it's going to be beautiful and it's going to have a cool sound, a crackle sound to it. And when I tried to glue down everything to it, it wouldn't stick. Even the ink would not stick. So I got a bright idea off that, and I thought, well, gosh, what is going to happen if I put tape on it? It doesn't stick. It pulled off right at the edge, and it would not stick to the parchment. So that is a little trick that I learned that I am very, very grateful for. Okay, I'm going to offset that just a little bit and put this more in the center. It doesn't have to be exact. You don't have to get that precise with it. And then this is going to go right up against it. Yes, there we go. I like it. Okay, at the last minute, I decided to go ahead and add some tea dye ink to this area because the blue wasn't enough just to tone it down. So I'm going to dab it. Just to tone down that white and add some aging to it. Yeah, you can already see the difference. There we go. With vintage, everything was muted, usually because it was deteriorating from acid. It faded all the colors. So keep that in mind when you are doing vintage designs. That's one big thing that I've learned doing vintage all these years. All right, so we are ready to attach that to our main scallop here. So let's pull out the tape runner and just do that. I like the tape runners. A lot of people like liquid glue. One thing I learned from watching some other videos is that if you do like liquid glue, then Fabri-Tac is the one to use because it's non-water based. So therefore, it will not wrinkle your paper. How cool is that? All right. We have our sentiment ready to go. Now, since I think I've decided not to make this dimensional, I'm going to go ahead and tack it down to my card base. And it's kind of tougher since I've already got those pieces on the front of it. Now I go around the edges with the tape runner. Then I do one swipe diagonally and a little swipe here and a little one there. That saves so much tape. I've seen people just slather the back of it, and they don't need to. There are certain focal points that as long as you hit those, then you're good. Okay, so now we have our card bottom finished and the top finished. Now, before I add this to the center, And the nice thing about Anna Griffin cards is you can make them as complex or as simple and clean as you want to. A lot of her cards are very clean, even though she's got layers and layers of these flowers and beautiful things. But I think what I want to do is take a ribbon that, yeah, I used this one on the other card last night, and I really liked the look. This one I also got at Hobby Lobby, and I liked it for the gold in it. This is just another sheer organza. Now, because this is kind of big, and I want that to peek out the top and the bottom, I'm going to pre-measure it, and I think that will work. Sorry, I keep forgetting to do this on camera. It's a little bit different from the other camera I was using a little while ago. Okay, so I'm going to put that right there. Actually, let me get that other tape. I need something to hold it in the center while I'm working with it. And I forget the name of this tape, but you guys will probably recognize it from the red color. I found this at Hobby Lobby years ago. Michael's used to carry it. But I like to put a little, it's super, super sticky. You can even emboss on these babies. Seriously. So I like to put a little piece of something really strong in the center where this bow is going to cross. And that acts like another pair of hands for me. Now I'm going to get this off here. Maybe. There we go. Thank God for these tweezers. Okay. And that way when I bring it back around, it'll hold. Now, but because of all that dimension I've got under there again, remember that we are going to have to use some glue that's a little more sturdy. I like the edges, so I don't think I'm going to clip them at a more severe angle than what I've got already. So let's go for the hot glue. I can't pick it up. You just need a little dot behind there. Get it as close to the center as you can. Yes. And there we go. All I have to do is just add my glue dots behind, so let me do that and I'll be right back. You don't need to see me do that. You know how to glue. Okay, we got those done. Stabbed myself with it a time or two. And just right on the center. And our card is done. Isn't that pretty? And it took very little effort. This one's not as dimensional as the other one that I did last night, but it's still just as beautiful. It's still just as Victorian. It's still just as Anna Griffin. So all we need to do now is add our printed sentiment on the inside and ink it up. You have to be careful with your nail polish because sometimes that'll happen. I've got some erasers with the color pencils that work to take that off there, but yeah, just attach your sentiment on the inside and you really don't even need to do anything else. You could use some beautiful lace stickers here if you wanted instead of rubber stamping, but I've got those gorgeous corner stamps that I'm going to use, so that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I'm sorry for the logistical nightmares that I've encountered, but if you have any questions or if I left out a step and thought that I was covering it, please leave me some questions and comments down below in the description or in the comments. I love to know that you guys are out there and watching. I'm starting to build a little bit of a following, but this is a slow process, but it's okay. I'm just enjoying the whole thing at the same time, even the camera nightmare. So I will be back online in a few days, hopefully once I sort out my camera issues, because the autofocus on the other one wasn't allowing me to time lapse, which is how I like to film those color pencil videos, because people don't want to see every, pencil stroke. But there you go, your Anna Griffin card. Yeah, so let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.